Hello all, welcome to TechTrapture. So in this video, we are going to discuss about our next compute service in Google Cloud, that is a Cloud Run. So in our past videos, we discussed about Google Compute Engine, Google App Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine, and we also deployed application on each of these compute platform. Now in this video, we are going to discuss about Google Cloud Run, and this is one of the most famous Google Cloud service currently used in the market. So let's jump into Cloud Run and see why it is a most famous service in a Google Cloud. So first, Cloud Run is managed and serverless compute platform that lets you run containers directly on top of Google scalable infrastructure. It means here you don't need to create any kind of infrastructure for your containers. So for if you working in the virtual machine, we created a Google Compute Engine VM instance, then deployed application. For Google App Engine, we created a YAML file, then we deployed our application on a Google App Engine. While working on the Kubernetes engine, we created a Kubernetes cluster first. We manage a lot of things for Kubernetes clusters, and then we deployed our container image. But in a Cloud Run, you can simply deploy your container image on this serverless platform, and you don't need to worry about any of the backend infrastructure. So if traffic increases, it will scale the infrastructure. If traffic decreases, it will just scale down the infrastructure. So that is completely serverless and managed compute platform for your containers. So you can deploy code written in any of the programming languages. So Cloud Run supports all programming languages because it runs in a container. So you'll just pack your all dependencies within the container and you will just run your container on the Cloud Run. So in fact, here we also don't need to manage a Docker image. So it will build a Docker image within a Cloud Run itself. So if you are using the Go, Node.js, Python, Ruby, these are the famous supported languages, then you can just give the path of your source code and it will build the container for your application. So it use the best practices and languages we are using. So if we are using the Python, then based on the Python best practices, you have to just provide the source code a repository, and based on your repository it will just create the container image for you and then deploy your application. So it will be very helpful to automate your if infrastructure deployment. Okay, so one more thing, you don't need to manage kind of YAML files or Docker files as well. If you want, you can just use only source code and with a single command you can deploy your application within the container on a Cloud Run. Okay, Cloud Runs allow developers to spend more time on writing their code and very little time on operating, configuring, and scaling their Cloud Run services. So as we discussed, it is managed on serverless platforms, so developer don't need to spend time on the infrastructure part, and they can simply write their application code. Now here we don't need to manage any kind of clusters like we managed in the Kubernetes. So we have to manage the cluster, we have to manage the configuration files and all the stuff, deployment, then services, all these things we had to manage in the Kubernetes. But now one confusion is common, that we already have Kubernetes for our containers, then why we need a Cloud Run. Okay, so here I'm just trying to simplify why we need a Cloud Run and in which case we should use a Cloud Run and which case we should go for the Google Kubernetes engine. Okay, so let's go to a next slide. So suppose if we have an application that is accessed only once in a day or triggered by specific event, and if you want to deploy that application as a container on Kubernetes engine, so you have to keep your nodes running all the time. So suppose your application is just to fetch some data through API and you are deploying that on a Kubernetes engine, so you have to keep your node running for all the time instead of just for your specific time. Okay, that is the one drawback here. Second thing, if your application is very small scale application and require just minimal setup, and for that small application, if you are managing the huge Kubernetes cluster, you are managing the nodes, you are managing the VPCs, you are managing all your deployments, you are managing your services, all Kubernetes objects you are managing, it is difficult to manage all this stuff just for a small application because Kubernetes is not a easy platform. It is a complex and require a lot of setup, even though it is the managed Kubernetes engine. So in that case, if you have small scale application, you can go ahead and use a Cloud Run. Okay, so example, when we should use a Cloud Run, so if you have event driven application, example, if your app is triggered by Google PubSub event or file upload or a cloud storage bucket. Now let me give one example. So suppose you have one task which has to be executed as soon as there is a file uploaded in the storage bucket. So in that case, you can use Cloud Run if you want to use in the containers. You can also use the cloud function if you want to use directly the source code. But suppose if you have a shell script with a lot of data processing and that is not supported in a cloud function, so you can execute that shell script in the container and you can deploy it on a Cloud Run. Then if you have a low traffic application where there is not huge traffic on the application and only certain times in a day people are accessing your application, in that case also using the Kubernetes is not a best choice. Okay, here you can see the internal tools and dashboard, access periodically such as admin portal, then API or microservices. So if you have a lightweight APIs for mobile application or intermittent traffic, you can use Cloud Run. So batch processing, as I said, we have a scheduled task or scheduled job. So in that case also we can use Cloud Run. So you can see like generating reports or researching images based on the certain events, we can use Cloud Run. And webhook and callbacks. So example, building webhooks to receive that handle occasional request from the third party services, we can use Cloud Run. So these are some options where we should use Cloud Run over a GKE. Okay, hope this is clear now. We'll see more discussion around when we should use Cloud Run and GKE and what is the criteria for using Cloud Run. That we'll see again in our next sessions. Okay, so first now we'll go to again a Cloud Run. So for cost sensitive workloads as well, as I said, the Kubernetes engine or GKE is very costly. So instead of that, we can go ahead and use a Cloud Run. So running the app doesn't require constant uptime and needs minimize idle cost. So in that case, we can use a Cloud Run that we already discussed. Now let's go to the Cloud Run again. So this Cloud Run can be executed in two ways. So it can be executed as service. So this is used to run the code that respond to a web request, event or a function. But now suppose in Cloud Run it's use HTTP endpoint. Okay, so whenever we create a Cloud Run as a service, create HTTP endpoints, and to access your service or to execute your application, you have to access that service or make a call on your HTTP request on your HTTP endpoint. But some of the tasks does not have HTTP endpoint. Let's say example, I have to fetch some data from the database. So it is not HTTP call. Suppose I have to schedule one of the tasks. So you cannot schedule that directly. Okay. So here we have a second option as well with the Cloud Run, that is a Cloud Run jobs. So here this Cloud Run job used to run a code or perform specific task and it will just quits its instance when the work is done. Okay, so in that case we can use Cloud Run jobs as well. Now again, when we should use a Cloud Run service, so when we have a website and application, when we have API and microservice, when we have a streaming kind of data processing where we need HTTP service to be running all the time, then we can use HTTP data endpoint with a Cloud Run service. And if we have kind of AI interface for models, then that case also we can use service. Now when we should use a job, so when you have to schedule kind of scripts, we have to execute some script to perform a specific task, or any operational task, we can use a job. If we have to do a parallel processing on some of the files in the cloud storage bucket, then we can use job. If we have to schedule something, then we can use a Cloud Run along with the cloud scheduler to schedule as a job. So these are the two options we have in Cloud Run. Now this was all about the theoretical concept of the Cloud Run. What is Cloud Run? How we can use a Cloud Run. One is a Cloud Run service, another is a Cloud Run jobs. Now we'll just go to a Google Cloud Console and we'll try to deploy our first Cloud Run and we'll see how it will work. Okay, so we'll just deploy simple Cloud Run service in this video. So let me go to the Cloud Console now. So now let me go to a cloud run. So I'll simply type a run here and it will give me a cloud run. So this is a fully managed, you can see a service exposes an unique endpoint automatically. So now here I have in service, as we discussed, we have two options, one as service, one as a job. So first we'll go with the service, and in this video we'll create a simple service with our cloud run. Now here if we go to a deploy container, again it will ask for the two options, service or job. So we can simply click on a service. Okay, now it is enabling cloud run admin API because we are creating our first cloud run function, and it is enabled now. Now here again we have two options here. Either we can deploy existing container image from Docker Hub or Artifact Registry, or we can directly give a source code and it will build our source code and create a Docker image for us, and then it will deploy the Docker image on our cloud run. And this is the third option which is recently introduced. This is a cloud run function. So this is nothing but they just try to merge the cloud function and cloud run and created our renamed cloud function as a cloud run function. So we'll discuss about the cloud run function in further videos because this is currently in preview state and it's not currently available for production use. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and use the existing revision. Okay, so here we have to mention the container image. For this video we'll just use a Google provided sample image, and in our next video we'll create our simple Python application and we'll build our own container image and we'll push it to Artifact Registry, and then we'll deploy our own container image from Artifact Registry to the cloud run. So what I will do now, I'll just test with a sample container. So simply I'll test with a sample container, and here it is using the Google Cloud sample image. So if I copy this and try to show you, this is a public image provided by a Google Cloud, that's why it will be available. So here it will be in Google's public artifact registry. Okay, you can see the latest image which is created or updated 12 days ago. So we'll be using this a public image with a hello world message or hello message. So we'll see that what we will see on the web page once we deploy this image. Now with given this sample container, now service name will just give hello and just type first service. Okay, now we have the endpoint now on which we can access our application, but here authentication, again you have two options, either allow unauthenticated invocation, so tick this if you are creating a public API or website, and second, require authentication where it can be used internally and your another service is calling your cloud run function. So here it can be managed through IAM. So I'm just deploying the web page, hello world web page here. So I'll just allow unauthenticated, so anyone from the internet can access my endpoint. Okay, so now I'll just go down and the billing. So you have two options for billing, a request based billing, and here you have 2 million free requests per month, and this is again within the free tier, so you have to pay very less, or you don't need to pay if you are having application which is not heavily used. Okay, and number of minimum instances I'll keep 0. It means if there is no traffic, no instance will be created, and if I keep minimum 1, then it will start with the 1 instance, but I'll just keep the minimum instances to 0. Now again the increase, allow traffic from your project, shared VPC or internal traffic, or allow direct access from the internet. So I'll just use allow access from the internet. Now again you might get confused between authentication and ingress. So this is for your authentication, your roles and permission, and this is related to the networking from where application can be accessed. So again I'll keep it all so anyone can access. Now I will not go into advanced setting in this section where we have volume, networking and security, and I'll simply create my first cloud run service. Okay, so within few seconds it will create my first revision. So if we deploying for first time, it will create my first revision. Again we are deploying in the same cloud run service, then it will create a second revision. So likewise it will keep adding the more revisions. It will take around minute to two to deploy your service. Now you can see message is deploying revision. So here now you can see revision completely successfully deployed here, and you can see the 100% traffic is on your this revision because this is the only revision you are having. And how you can access your application? So simply go on this HTTP endpoint and it will show this is a sample Google image, and it is showing that congratulations, successfully deployed container image to the cloud run. So we have to simply mention the path of the container image and it will be deployed on the cloud run. So you don't need to worry about the cluster, the instances, anything you have to ignore here. So all the infrastructure is managed by a Google Cloud. Now hope you understood what is a cloud run, and this is very basic introduction to the cloud run just for the beginners. Now in next video we'll create our own Python Flask application, kind of the web application, and we'll build our own container image and we'll deploy that container image on the cloud run. So that's it for this video, and we'll see you again in a next video.